and you should make a difference. And how do you reconcile that so that you actually do take action that's in line with who you want to be in the world?
All things are perfect versus things need support. How do I understand what to do, when and where? Similar to that?
Yeah.
Great comment, Colleen, thank you. For me, it's very simple today. I will preface it very shortly. I have little global power. I'm out of the media for the most part, except for the podcast on occasion. My relationships to high international recognition, Nobel laureates, celebrities has dissipated. I am right back to human interaction, and I answer the question very much like some of my mentors have suggested to me. It's always consistently one person at a time. Revolutions are won or lost one person at a time. I'm really a believer that who we are, with whom we're speaking, is our ultimate expression, for me, of activism. Now, there will be those who disagree with that. I'm not, personally, a take to the street type. If I were to take to the street, it would be the digital street. I'm very nifty with digital presence, video, audio. But I'm a one person at the time, keeping it very simple, doing everything I can to use and reinvent the cliche, walking my talk. Integrity is very high for me, and integrity of holding you and integrity is very high for me. I want to be in revolutionary, transformational, beautiful, intimate activism, and tenderness, and eroticism, and romance, right here, right now. Beyond that, I read the papers at times. I can't afford the hard copy. I don't have a home to have it delivered to. When I do, I'm alarmed. I'm shocked by the radicalization of totalitarianism that's infiltrated corporate global democracies. I have a vision that relates very much to I want to make a bigger difference. That bigger difference is I want to go global with my digital world. It's the time of my life where I own my voice as much as humanly possible. I have something to feel and say. It may or may not make a difference, but I want to basically communicate how I feel. So my activism today is to find people, a patron, an individual, a group of people, not only Margaret's $25 a month that she's reluctant to give, but to finance Alan's revolution of his art and his Dharma, to use broadcast, digital, high quality, consistent audio and video to move people from their complacency. And I believe, like you and I are emerging friends, I believe that there's lots of Alans and lots of Colleens in this world that have yet met. I want to connect some of the dots. I've got things that I want to do with really interesting people. And that vision to me isn't necessarily about activism, but it's about the collective, not speaking truth to power, but speaking truth to truth. I want to dance with people who want to dance. I don't want to fight with people who don't want to dance. Done. Activists need to confront that sort of injustice, let them do it. I'm not wanting to take to the streets, I'm more into taking the hand, the heart, the mind, the glass of wine, the erotic moment, the intimacy of a shared space, and celebrate a higher frequency music together as a new form of challenge to mediocrity, to the structures of fascism. And maybe you and I, or someone like you and I, or maybe you and I and someone else or another, we film this incredibly romantic, erotic, heightened sense of liberating wakefulness, and all of a sudden we become the anti-porn. And all of a sudden someone in high power goes, oh my God. I'm into that oh my God moment. To me, I want to create, not plant medicine, I want to create cognitive revolution through intimacy. I think that's the missing thing in the world. That for me. And I leave all those other street people that take to the streets in civil disobedience. I honor them. I honor Greta Thunberg from Sweden in activating the youth and the adults both in an existential civil disobedience to take to the streets constantly to inform leaders of a different way, but I want to inform good people of a higher way. So that higher resonance is very interesting to me. I've always been moved, Colleen, by music. Maybe you too. But when I ever need to move, I turn on music. I don't turn on a video clip of activism. And so my spirit needs to be moved. And right now I'm looking for a new music that did things throughout history in my life that moved me in ways that were unorthodox to what I knew. It moved me beyond complacency, activated new neurons and pathways of awakening and interesting new threads of thought. I want to be in that realm of the secret things in that Rumi poem, out beyond the familiar. I want to be out there beyond the familiar. That's not the street. So I'm more in the poetry of new forms of love as being my form of activism. So the world isn't perfect for me, but it's at least at this stage, still today, there is the possibility of dancing and moving and making love and talking. And you know, you've heard the story before, I won't say too long the version, but the couple, the man and the older man who was in Poland, and they were taken to Auschwitz on the train and they were stripped of their clothing. And there they were, this young man who was about 19 and an older man he knew in the village that was about 70. They didn't know each other well, he said, when he died. But he saw this man shivering in this freezing cold, knowing that they were going to a certain death. And he felt instinctually the need to take his hands and touch this old man's freezing cold body and rub it as the train chugged along to the end of life. We're all on that extinction railway today. And in the morning, after a frigid night, he himself naked and freezing, he looked around in the daybreak and saw in the train, everyone is dead. They all froze to death. And he and the man were the only two alive. To me, that's a very radical form of activism, caring for the one right in front of you. That's why I believe so much in the old-fashioned word commitment and marriage. And where there's complexity, he could have stopped at any minute, right? This is inappropriate. I'm going to save myself. He didn't even know the man. So that's how I want to relate. You know, don't take your hands off my heart if I'm freezing. I would like to know that I had the ethical, spiritual courage to do the same with you. We're in that moment. It's not a sense of fatalism, but it's a recognition of where I feel my heart is most moved. So activism is more of my growing discomfort with mediocrity in my life, with conformity to existing frameworks of thinking and feeling. I try not to prepare. I try to be clumsy. I don't mind being inarticulate. I don't really care if you like me or dislike me, but don't like me too much or don't dislike me a whole lot. Still rejection prone. I'm sensitive to that. But intimacy is the new frontier for me. The authentication of intimacy. Not just intimate or authentic, but the authentication of an evolving intimacy that's never been known. That roomy space beyond here and there. So that's my response to that in my own life. And actually it was an Aung San Suu Kyi-ism who really helped me understand that revolution was a one person at a time action. Most of Burma's revolution was actualized in prison cells. They were all incarcerated because of what they did. There was no taking to the street. They took to the heart. It's very amazing. So I really advocate that taking to the heart process. It's one of the things I love about being in Bali and Ubud in my life at this stage of my life. I can genuinely, like you and I meet, we meet from the heart. Heidi and I meet from the heart. Jennifer and I, we meet from the heart. Other people I know here, we meet from the heart. And I want to do that more and more. So that's the new revolution for me. Call it love, call it intimacy, a higher frequency awakening, call it music, whatever it may be. I call it a world Dharma, beyond ism, beyond teacher, kind of like the blockchain, a leaderless, decentralized liberation. And that's the trans Alan today is no longer a Buddhist, no longer teacher, no longer guru, none of that stuff. You know, I believe that somehow in the future, if that Cheyenne Valley Ridge was the future 10, 50, 100, a million years from now, what would we leave behind in the sediment of that hill that could be excavated, smelled, birthed, breathed as the fragrance of these beautiful flowers that was you and I exchanging in this moment? I believe in that type of existential, futuristic transference. Love will not be lost. Fear tells me it's lost. Love tells me it's liberated. Question? Margaret, please.
Sure. I'm not quite sure if you've answered this or not, but having been brought up as a Catholic, sex education was non-existent. Then, you know, in my marriage, I mean, I think I learned more about sex at my child's education classes than I did. You know, I don't know how we did it, but after my marriage ended, I got cervical cancer, and I realized that I needed to do something to find out what created it. So I thought, well, what is there out there? And at the time it was Tantra. And it helped me to become intimate with me, to get to know me, to get to know what I wanted, and then I could explore beyond that at things that I would never have. I would have just said, no way will I ever do that. But it opened it up for me. I guess where I'm going to now is that I've been celibate for about 7 years, because through Tantra I got to a point where I was the teacher in Ireland, you can imagine. And I realized it was kind of ego-based. You know, it wasn't working. So I guess what I'm asking you, is there a new fad? You know, what is the new way of sex? I mean, the more I become in my own body, the more I'm realizing that I like me, I care about me, I'm interested in my needs. And it's very different, and I'm wondering, is that the new way of being in a relationship, where both people, the more embodied you are, sex is just going to be totally different. So is there a new way?
For me, there's a new way. In my last intimate relationship, it was a radically new way. I said earlier today that I woke up 4 years ago realizing that it was time to come back into my life and my body and my sexuality, my intimacy. And I was blessed to work with a remarkable Tantra teacher, a non-sexual relationship that really explored, for me, what goes on for a woman sexually. I didn't never know that. I just had sex. And so she was remarkably forthcoming, and I met other women in which they blessed me with their experience with men and women to hear and to ask. So I opened up in areas that had been closed. I discovered things that I'd never known in my sexuality, and eventually it led to a gradual opening to what it meant to touch again. The new way is, I would say, utterly unique to your inner process with whomever you choose to have a consensual moment or set of moments with. But I like the concept of new. At the same time, I like to couple it with, in my life, with beautiful states of mind. They're not always just passive. You know, I don't want to just say beautiful is always just this magnificent. They're dimensional. I'm a satirist. I'm a surrealist. I do comedy. There's things that I really theatrically express way out loud. There's nothing I won't do on stage. I'll act out in all kinds of ways that are almost pornographic. I'll say things that are just unthinkably frank. It's beyond X. So what's new? The new fad you use, the new way. I would only support you as an emerging friend. You know, what is your way? Who do you want to meet on the terms of your integrity, your joy? I said here, this woman brought up the issue of eroticism. What does eroticism mean to you? What's the energy of it? What's the aroma of it? What's the taste of it? It's so tasteful.
That was quite tantric. We did all of that. And you name it. We multi-layered. There was nothing we didn't do. But I know the more embodied I get, the more I've changed. And I think that is a lot of it for me. You know, but I'm not dissing Tantra. It is the reason why I don't have cervical cancer anymore. You know, so I'm just...
So there you go. There you've got your answer.
Yeah.
You know, may you just continue to follow what you feel is true. That's my way, is just following this unique thing called my humble integrity about what excites me about being human. Intimacy, sexuality are very exciting. But I find a lot of people live in the fraudulence of its expression. They live in the shadow of it. It's harsh. I hear many stories of struggle and complexity and angularity, and maybe it's the nature of things. I mean, look at me at this stage. So I can't answer the question, but I could certainly put a camera in front of you when you're with your next partner. We could film it and then talk about it. Hey, look at Margaret. Look what you're doing.
Do you want my mother to have a heart attack?
And you can look at it and critique it. God, I love it that way, boy. Not that orifice, this one. What do you like? That's the best way to ask. What turns me fucking on? Keep it real and frank. You know, the new way is trans-tantric, means my way. You've already done the peak, you already did Everest. You changed all of Ireland now.
Well, it was, let's just say,
Call you
it was underground.
Was it?
You know, it was like, let's all get together at my place and we'll talk about things that you don't talk about, you know? There was an element of that, which was quite freeing. And,
Yeah.
you
There,
know,
that's the operative word, freeing.
freeing.
Freeing. Freeing. That's the new intimacy. What's freeing? You know, it's so difficult to see people struggle.
Yeah.
We almost have gotten into the inevitability of it, the constant accommodation of it. But like I was saying to Colleen and to a few other people here, I'm in the vicinity at this point in my life where that is not going to happen. Knock on psychic wood, I'm not down for it anymore. I know myself sufficiently at this point. I'm pretty well aware that next time around, this moment here, the next moment there, is going to be high harmony. You know, this gentleman brought up the issue of harmony. I'm into high harmony, high frequency, really get down art. The artfulness of a new, you know, John and Yoko. As much as I hear that he was, you know, quite possessed with himself, but some role model.
Sting, in fairness, was one of the first Tantra people.
You like that Tantra word, don't you?
Well,
Maybe you should go back and do the second teacher training.
Yeah.
Turn back all the new children in Ireland.
I guess I'm looking for a new word, you know. And
There you go.
that's the problem.
Let's locate it
Just
right now.
Have sex.
I refuse. Will you do it? Will you refuse to ever use the Tantra word again?
I will. Well, let's just think about that.
Nick, camera on Margaret. Do you really want to do it, Margaret? Do you really want to go there?
I don't actually have a problem with it.
Okay, there you go.
You
Just
know, I don't. It's more that I'm curious now. I haven't been celibate. And really, I was asking myself, do I even want sex again? Because I'm getting so comfortable with myself and happy, and I don't need a man for anything. You know, except it would be great to have intimacy and connection and great conversations. But you can have that with guys anyway. You know, so I'm asking, you know, is there a new...
Nick, would you please film her face on? Enough of this shit. You're a psychotherapist, you got a freebie. Margaret, you're brilliant. You're a contradiction in terms.
Absolutely.
You are.
Yeah.
It's on camera. Listen, you're a blessed heart. May your foibles take the better of you and overcome your flaws so that you can relive Tantra and beyond. And not all men do sex, by the way. Some,
Really?
no,
Wow,
they don't.
wow, that's another
Some do
story.
porno.
They do porn. Yeah. No, and that's not, I'm just. As I
Do you
said,
like
we've
porn?
Been there, done that, and worn the t-shirt. We all know, what the whole.
So you don't want to give up
sex is
Tantra.
about, but I'm just saying, I look forward to a new way of being with sex.
Okay, good. Well, at least it was captured on camera, beyond you and me. You can relive this experience freely.
And if anybody out there has any ideas how I can
Look,
let
she's
go,
putting out. Look, this is
I
her
asked the question.
her video Tinder.
I asked the question if there's anybody out there with a new way of being with lovemaking, let me know.
Oh, Margaret, you rock on. Okay, good. There you go. Hey, listen, that's high celebration.
And my number down.
Can Nick put that on Ubud day and night?
God only knows what I'd get if we did that. I haven't done that.
Were you really?
You're definitely going to have to stop paying Alan now.
Thank you, Heidi. Heidi and I work together.
Man, you get 25 quid.
25 fucking quid for this.
Anybody else?
So other questions that may be or important or inquiries as we come closer to the end? If there's anything at all from someone who hasn't spoken, you're welcome to keep it short and sweet if you want, or be more intimate. It's up to you. Take a moment and think. Samantha, what time is it?
10 to 5.
10 to 5? Okay, so let's end for the day. I've got a few announcements if I can. I'm abandoning cafe tonight for those of you who go there. I've just done with grilled chicken. I can't bear it. They're refusing to turn off the fans and there's too much smoke. So I'm going to Zest tonight if anyone wants to go. I'll be there probably right around 6:30, 6:45. I would really encourage anyone who wants to come and hang. If you're there before me, they like me there. You could ask them if they would take that larger table that's in the middle under the awning and outside. See if you can just grab it and maybe take a seat or two, and as we occupy, people come. Anyone who thinks they're coming? My God, just me.
I think I'm coming.
You think? Maybe?
What do you think about sitting here and to have an evening
Here in this villa?
Yes.
Well, I'd have to bring a bottle of wine back here. I don't have one. There's no food, and yeah, I don't know about that. Maybe tomorrow though. But tonight I'd rather just go. So may I ask? Come, Nina. You're very reluctant, aren't you? Okay, Heidi will bring you. Anyone else who thinks they might come?
What time would you
6:45 is the latest to be there.
stay till?
Oh, go as you like. I mean, I'll stay until 9:30. But it's been interesting. So that's happening. And may I remind you about YouTube? I really would like to get off of Facebook and onto the YouTube platform where I could more freely broadcast to many more people who might find it. So if you haven't or you would feel inclined to subscribe, may I invite you to do that? And if you feel inclined to suggest it to a friend or two, that's up to you.
What's the channel?
My YouTube is Alan Clements World Dharma. Burma again. People are talking about Burma. May I see those of you who are thinking about coming? Thinking. I got your application, by the way, so you're cool. You're thinking about coming? How cool is that? You're thinking, Kylie, still? Margaret? You're thinking about it? Heidi's thinking? You're coming, though. Who actually is coming that's already registered? Both of you and that gentleman in the back. Is there anything you want to ask about it? You don't have to do the tour and the retreat. The retreat is on its own. It has its own integrity. It's also offered freely by the monastery. They provide your room, the food, the teachings. It's quite an experience. It's not quite like this. It's silent. We have a daily group of an hour long with me that's optional to help support the translation of what's happening there. It's very traditional. There's a young monk who's one of the senior monk teachers there who's remarkable, U Tejaniya. He's only about 45 years old, and he's just a very well-known, very competent guide. He'll be leading the retreat along with me from behind the scenes. So if you have any questions, do you have any questions about the retreat at all that you want to ask right now so other people can hear the answer? Take a moment. Please.
So how you organize it? Like people buy tickets, flight tickets independently, or it's a group price?
Like how do you, the only thing that's offered about the retreat is the retreat itself. What one would have to do is obviously get their own flight. You have to get a round trip ticket to get into the country, but you can easily do that from Bangkok or even from Denpasar. And you just apply online for a 28-day tourist visa, which is easy to do. You just tell them I'm wanting to experience the culture, and you get it usually within 48 hours, and you have a visa upon arrival. You just get it stamped into your passport. You take a taxi from the airport for about $5, $10 to the monastery, which is only about 6 miles away from the airport. And once you arrive on 31st of January by 9 or 10 in the morning, everything is taken care of you from that point on until February 9th when the retreat ends. If you want to come before for a day or two, there's thousands of hotels and hostels. Burma and Yangon, the capital, is a fascinating, complex city. And I'm there from early December until late February. So just let me know and we can connect. But you would have to apply online on my website. I'll confirm, and that's it. Clothing there is monastic appropriate. I'll explain that. It's on the website. You can buy things there very inexpensively. You have to wear sarongs. Women have to wear white blouses. Men wear sarongs. Men wear white shirts. There's no talking except in the group with the teachers and with me privately. And I'm there to support you. You get private rooms. The men have really luxurious rooms. I mean, far better than anything I've seen primarily in Ubud. Really amazing. The women have really adequate rooms, but they're private with their own washroom. The food is magnificent. The water's clean. You can have vegan or vegetarian or traditional. And you really get immersed within deep monastic, mindful Burmese culture. There's a tour at the end of that from February 10th until the 19th. That's also on the website. The itinerary is there. That does cost. I'm not taking any money for that. The tour guide, who's an old friend of mine, is putting it together. It's pretty interesting. If you want to do that, you can apply for that. You can read the itinerary, and you'll come along. If you're interested in the retreat, there is a limit to about 20 people. There's already about 14 to 16. I'd recommend that you make haste with your ideas of wanting to do it and put things in order, because it's limited by them, not me. And although there are cancellations, often when there isn't an exchange of money, people change their mind at the last minute. That's natural. So we often so-called overbook by 4 or 5 people, by way of saying, although you have time, you have a little bit more time than urgent. It's a very interesting event. Questions that you might have about it? Anything at all?
Nice number of people on the tour.
Well, I'm saying 10. But there's already 6 with another 10 that are really serious. But it's not so much the amount that's the issue, it's the transportation, the availability of hotels, and the changing of that. So between 10 and 15. But that's a challenging journey. Burma is a challenging country. Just today, for example, I've mentioned how I went to a very remote area outside of Yangon, the most impoverished area of the country, 250,000 people living in unthinkable squalor, just simply because of the ravages of dictatorship. And just today I received a note from my dear friend, a village that we were going to build roofs for, maybe 50,000 people, the entire area of like 75,000 people, their huts burned to the ground, completely burned down. And these already impoverished people, many of them children who don't know their age, their birth date, they're attended to by other children, sometimes only 2 to 3 years older than them, while their parents go into the city, if they're working, to often work in plastics manufacturing companies or car parts, or worse yet, garment factories, or phone parts, to come back to put maybe some rice on the plate, where the children then come home and do this. And it's just unthinkable teachings to see this. It's not a scenic experience. But if you're into heightened provocation and intimacy and awakening, Burma is the place to visit. You see breathtaking expressions of emotions. Also, physically, the country is a spectacle. The whole country should be a World Heritage Site. They have things from 1,000 years ago to 2,500 years ago that are intact. Most of the country is agrarian, so you see people living like the Balinese here, but without access to Ubud. No electricity, a tangle of villages, oxen, horses, barefoot. Very interesting. So if you're interested in that tour, and you'll also meet some remarkable people. It's a people-oriented experience. So that's on the website as well. Anything else about Burma that you want to know? Or please.
You mentioned various books that you've written. What are the top couple that you would recommend reading in preparation for this?
Books that I've written? Well, there's an emotional, psychological preparation, and Burma as a country is not really understood on the Lonely Planet level. I have a particular fondness for the people and the culture. They're family to me. I've been intimately involved in their politics, their revolution, their struggles, their monasticism. Preparation for that, you could read my book with Aung San Suu Kyi, although old. It's still very much the spirit of revolution. It's called The Voice of Hope. You could read my book Instinct for Freedom, which is a memoir of my life in Burma, both monastically, meditatively, and post-monastically. And my book for my daughter that I wrote called A Future to Believe In. A Future to Believe In. This gentleman has a copy right here. This I find to be a very, very interesting book in the dimensions of what I've been sharing here. It's well expressed in that book. Those three. That I don't know. I mean, I would just go digitally shopping. They're everywhere, most every country, including translations, but dig, because the algorithms of some of these bigger retailers online show that you don't get the hard copy from Australia, you got to buy it from America, whereas in fact, if you go deeper, you'll find that it's actually available in bookstores and that kind of thing. So do some due diligence, but you can get it, and you can even ask this gentleman how he got that copy.
What I did find was that it was hard to get a digital copy from Australia with the Australian address and the US address. But hard copies, I think, are pretty easy to get sent from England. I got mine sent from England to Australia in 5 days.
And just two more brief things. If tomorrow is day 5 and obviously Sunday is day 6, if you do want to further the reach of family and tribe, may I encourage you to pass word on to friends and members of your social networks, whether it be Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or all three, or word of mouth, or email, or phone call, any way you want to communicate. Please It doesn't matter that you haven't been here. What's really important is that we connect. And this could be our home. Definitely one of them at least. And so it's my way of appealing to family, to connect family. So if you feel inclined, may people feel invited to come for these next 2 days, even if it's just for one session. And last but not least, should you feel inclined to leave a donation, you're welcome to do that. And thanks Samantha for her tireless support, Nick for filming, and Ian and Terry for the gift of this villa. Have a great night. Hope to see you at Zest. I'll be there 6:30, 6:45. See you tomorrow otherwise. Good night.